Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the stars through the main window. He had been exploring space for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. A massive ship floated in front of them, 10 times bigger than his own vessel. The alien ship looked like a crystal palace made of blue and silver metal. "Sir, they are sending us a message," said Ryan Walsh from his communication station. He was young and excited about making first contact with aliens. His hands shook as he worked on his controls. Jake walked over to Ryan's station. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. The alien looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and large golden eyes. It wore robes that seemed to glow with their own light. When it spoke, its voice was soft and musical. "Greetings, travelers from the world you call Earth. I am Ambassador Kethtar of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been waiting a long time to meet your species. We invite you aboard our vessel for a celebration of this historic moment." Dr. Lisa Bennett stepped forward from her science station. She was the ship's doctor and knew more about alien life than anyone else on the crew. "Captain, this could be the most important day in human history. We should accept their invitation." Jake looked around at his crew. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, his security chief, looked worried. He always expected trouble. Amy Carter, the ship's engineer, was fascinated by the alien technology she could see on their screens. Everyone was nervous but excited. "Send our reply. Ryan, tell them we would be honored to visit their ship." 2 hours later, Jake and his senior officers stood in the docking bay of the alien vessel. The Zephyrians had sent a small shuttle to bring them across. The inside of their ship was even more beautiful than the outside. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors as they walked past. Ambassador Kethtar met them with 6 other aliens. Each one was from a different species. One looked like a tall bird with silver feathers. Another had green skin and moved like liquid water. A third had 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dim light. "Welcome to the heart of the Zephyrian Collective," Kethtar said with a smile that showed white teeth. "These are my fellow ambassadors. We represent 7 different worlds that have joined together in peace and trade." The aliens led the humans through corridors filled with art and music. Jake had never imagined that alien culture could be so rich and beautiful. They passed rooms where young aliens were learning from holographic teachers. In other areas, scientists worked on projects that the humans could not even understand. "Your species is remarkable," said Dr. Bennett to Kethtar as they walked. "How long have your people been traveling between the stars?" "Nearly 3,000 of your Earth years," the ambassador replied. "We have met many species in that time, but none from your part of the galaxy. We are very curious about humanity." They arrived at a great hall where hundreds of aliens from different species had gathered. Tables were set with food and drink from many worlds. The smell of exotic spices filled the air. Music played from invisible sources, creating sounds that human ears had never heard before. "This is our traditional welcome ceremony," explained Kethtar. "Each species shares something from their world. We hope you will do the same." Jake felt overwhelmed by the kindness of these beings. After so many years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, here was proof that life existed everywhere and that it could be peaceful and friendly. The ceremony began with each alien species presenting gifts and performing traditional songs or dances. When it was humanity's turn, Jake spoke about Earth and human history. He told them about human dreams of exploring space and meeting other intelligent life. The aliens listened with great interest. They asked questions about human culture and technology. Dr. Bennett shared her medical knowledge while Amy Carter explained human engineering. Everyone was getting along perfectly. Near the end of the celebration, Kethtar brought out a ceremonial blade made of the same crystal material as their ship walls. It was beautiful, with intricate patterns carved into its surface. "This is the Blade of Unity," the ambassador said. "It has been used in our ceremonies for 1,000 years. Each new species we meet is invited to touch it as a symbol of friendship between our peoples." Jake reached out to take the blade. The crystal felt warm in his hands and seemed to pulse with its own energy. But as he held it up to examine the detailed carvings, his hand slipped on the smooth surface. The sharp edge cut across his palm. It was not a deep wound, just enough to draw blood. A few drops of bright red human blood fell from his hand onto the white ceremonial table below. The reaction was instant and terrible. Every alien in the hall began to scream. Their skins started to blister and burn as if acid had been poured on them. Kethtar fell to his knees, his blue skin turning black around his face and hands. The other ambassadors writhed on the floor in obvious pain. "Get away from us," one of the aliens shouted in panic. "You are poison. You are death." Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Red lights flashed as emergency systems activated. The aliens who could still move ran from the hall, leaving their injured companions behind. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the noise. He looked at his bleeding hand in confusion. It was just a small cut. How could a few drops of blood cause such terror? Dr. Bennett was already scanning the injured aliens with her medical equipment. "Captain, I'm reading massive cellular breakdown in their tissues. It's like their bodies are being destroyed from the inside." Sam Rodriguez grabbed Jake's arm. "Sir, we need to get back to our ship now. Something is very wrong here." The humans ran through the corridors as alien voices echoed around them, calling them monsters and demons. They reached their shuttle just as Kethtar's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Humans of Earth." The ambassador's voice was weak and filled with pain. "You have brought death to our celebration. Your very blood burns through our flesh like fire. We name you the Burning Ones, and we will warn all species to stay away from you. Never come near us again." The connection ended. The human shuttle was ejected from the alien ship with violent force. Jake and his crew barely made it back to the New Horizon before the massive alien vessel disappeared into hyperspace, leaving them alone among the stars. Jake sat in his captain's chair and stared at the bandage on his hand. A small cut had just changed everything for humanity. They were no longer alone in the universe, but they had also learned that they were something terrible and dangerous to every other form of life they might meet. Dr. Bennett was already in her lab, studying samples of his blood and trying to understand what had just happened. But Jake knew that whatever she discovered, humanity's future among the stars had just become much more complicated and frightening than anyone had ever imagined. 3 weeks had passed since the New Horizon returned to Earth. Captain Jake Morrison sat in a meeting room at Earth Defense Command, watching Admiral Kate Thompson read the final report of their mission. The room was filled with the most important people in human space exploration. "So you're telling me that a few drops of blood caused an entire alien ship to flee in terror?" Admiral Thompson looked up from her tablet. She was a tough woman who had commanded fleets in the outer colonies for 15 years. "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied. "Dr. Bennett has been running tests nonstop. She says our blood contains compounds that are deadly to alien cell structures." Dr. Alex Parker, Earth's leading biochemist, leaned forward in his chair. "I've reviewed Dr. Bennett's data. The iron in human hemoglobin appears to trigger rapid cellular breakdown in alien tissue. It's like our blood is acid to them." General Rick Hayes, head of military strategy, shook his head. "This changes everything. We thought first contact would lead to trade and cooperation. Instead, we've learned we're walking biological weapons." Admiral Thompson stood up and walked to the large window that showed Earth's orbital stations. "The question is, what do we do now? We can't just pretend this didn't happen." The answer came sooner than anyone expected. 2 days later, every human colony and space station received the same message. It appeared on all communication channels at exactly the same time, broadcast with technology far beyond human understanding. Ryan Walsh, who had been promoted to head of alien communications, played the message for the emergency council meeting. The image showed dozens of different alien species standing together in what looked like a massive government building. A tall alien with gray skin and no hair spoke for the group. Its voice was cold and official. "People of Earth, I am High Chancellor Fexron of the Grand Council of Species. We represent over 200 civilizations across this galaxy." Jake felt his stomach drop as he listened to the alien's words. "Your species has been classified as a Class X biological hazard. Your blood and possibly other bodily fluids contain compounds that are fatal to all known forms of galactic life. Effective immediately, all human star systems are under complete quarantine. The message continued with terms that made everyone in the room pale. No human ship would be allowed to leave their current territory. Any vessel that tried to cross the quarantine line would be destroyed without warning. All trade with human colonies would end immediately. "We do not wish to harm your species," the alien chancellor said, "but we cannot allow you to spread your biological poison throughout the galaxy. You will remain in your designated space until we find a solution to this problem." The transmission ended, leaving the room in shocked silence. "How long do our outer colonies have before they run out of supplies?" Admiral Thompson asked quietly. General Hayes checked his reports. "The furthest colonies depend on regular supply runs from Earth. Without them, they'll face food shortages in 3 months. Some of the mining stations will run out of basic life support materials even sooner." Dr. Maya Singh, the leading expert on alien psychology, had been quiet during the meeting. Now she spoke up. "The aliens are genuinely terrified of us." In their message, I could see fear in every species represented. "They're not doing this to be cruel. They think we're a plague that could wipe out all life in the galaxy." Over the following weeks, the situation became worse. Human ships that approached the quarantine boundary were met by massive alien fleets. The aliens didn't attack immediately, but their weapons were always ready. Long-range scans showed that hundreds of alien vessels patrolled the edges of human space. Dr. Parker worked day and night in his laboratory, trying to understand why human blood was so dangerous to aliens. His research team made disturbing discoveries. Not only was human blood toxic to alien cells, but even small amounts could spread the effect to other aliens nearby. It was like a biological weapon that could destroy entire populations. "It doesn't make sense from an evolutionary standpoint," Dr. Parker explained to Admiral Thompson during one of their daily briefings. "Why would humans develop blood chemistry that's specifically deadly to aliens we've never met before?" Meanwhile, the isolated human colonies began sending desperate messages to Earth. The mining station at Alpha Centauri reported that their food supplies were running low. The farming colony on Kepler 438b said their equipment was breaking down without replacement parts from Earth. Captain Morrison volunteered to lead a supply mission to the outer colonies, but Admiral Thompson refused. "Jake, the aliens have made it clear that any ship crossing the quarantine line will be destroyed. I won't sacrifice you and your crew for a mission that can't succeed." The breaking point came when the colony on Ross 128b sent a final transmission. The colony administrator, a woman named Carol Davis, appeared on screen looking tired and scared. "Earth Command, this is our last message. We've been without supply deliveries for 2 months. Our food ran out 3 days ago. There are 47 people here, including 12 children. We've done everything we can, but we won't survive much longer." The transmission cut to static, and no further messages were received from Ross 128b. Admiral Thompson called an emergency meeting of all department heads. "We have 2 choices," she said grimly. "We can accept the quarantine and watch our people in the outer colonies die slowly, or we can fight our way through the alien blockade. Fighting means war with over 200 alien civilizations," General Hayes pointed out. "Our weapons and ships are nothing compared to their technology. We saw how advanced the Zephyrians were, and they're just one species in this galactic council." Dr. Singh added her thoughts. "Even if we could win a war, it would prove to the aliens that we're not just biologically dangerous but also aggressive. They might decide the only solution is to destroy humanity completely." Jake Morrison stood up from his chair. "There has to be another way. Maybe we can find aliens who are willing to work with us. Not every species in the galaxy can agree with this quarantine." "That's assuming any of them would risk contact with us," Admiral Thompson replied. "Would you shake hands with someone if you knew their touch could kill you?" The meeting ended without any clear solutions. That night, Jake stood on the observation deck of the orbital station and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonists were dying because of something in their blood that they couldn't control or understand. He thought about the Zephyrian ambassador, Kethtar, and how excited the alien had been to meet humanity. In just a few seconds, that excitement had turned to terror and pain. Now that same fear had spread to hundreds of alien species across the galaxy. Humanity had dreamed of joining a galactic community for centuries. Instead, they had become prisoners, in their own corner of space, feared by every other intelligent species they might encounter. The worst part was not knowing why. Why did human blood have this effect? Why were humans so different from every other form of life in the galaxy? Until they found those answers, humanity would remain alone among the stars, trapped by their own biology. Marcus Webb adjusted the controls of his small cargo ship as he flew through the asteroid field near the Tau Ceti system. He had been a smuggler for most of his adult life, and he knew how to hide from people who didn't want to be found. Now, he was using those same skills to sneak past alien patrol ships. His cargo hold was full of medical supplies and food meant for the human colony on Tau Ceti Prime. The colony had been without supplies for 4 months since the alien quarantine began. Marcus knew he was risking his life, but he couldn't stand by and watch people starve. "Computer, show me the patrol routes again," he said quietly. A holographic display appeared in front of him, showing the positions of alien ships around the quarantine boundary. There were dozens of them, from species Marcus had never seen before. Some looked like the crystal ships of the Zephyrians. Others were dark metal vessels that reminded him of giant insects. Marcus had learned to read their movement patterns over the past few weeks. The aliens were careful and systematic, but they didn't expect humans to be stupid enough to try breaking through their blockade. That gave him a small advantage. He waited until the nearest patrol ship moved to the far side of its route, then fired up his engines and raced toward the gap in their coverage. His ship was small and fast, built for exactly this kind of dangerous run. 20 minutes later, Marcus landed at the colony spaceport on Tau Ceti Prime. The colonists who met him looked thin and tired, but their faces lit up when they saw his cargo. "Marcus, you beautiful fool," said Colony Administrator Beth Turner as she hugged him. "We thought everyone had forgotten about us." "Earth Command hasn't forgotten," Marcus replied as he helped unload the supplies. "But Admiral Thompson can't risk official ships. The aliens would blast them out of space before they got halfway here." While the colonists distributed the food and medicine, Marcus met privately with Beth in her office. She looked older than when he had last seen her 6 months ago. The stress of keeping the colony alive was wearing her down. "How bad is it, really?" Marcus asked. Beth sighed and pulled up reports on her computer. "We lost 8 people in the first month after the quarantine started. Mostly older colonists who needed regular medicine from Earth. We've managed to stretch our remaining supplies, but we can't keep going much longer." "What about the other colonies?" "Ross 128B went silent 2 weeks ago. We think everyone there is dead. The mining station at Wolf 359 is down to emergency rations. They have maybe 10 days left." Marcus felt sick thinking about all the people who were dying because of the alien fear of human blood. "I'll make runs to as many colonies as I can. My ship is small, but I can carry enough supplies to keep people alive." "It's too dangerous," Beth protested. "The aliens will eventually catch you." "Maybe, but I have to try." Marcus made successful supply runs to 3 more colonies over the next 2 weeks. Each time he learned more about alien patrol patterns and found new ways to avoid detection. But he also learned something else that worried him. On his 4th run, his ship's sensors picked up strange energy readings from a disabled alien vessel drifting near the quarantine line. Marcus decided to investigate, hoping to learn more about alien technology. The alien ship was badly damaged, as if it had been in a fight. Marcus carefully docked with it and put on his environmental suit before going aboard. The ship belonged to a species he had never seen before, with long corridors designed for creatures much taller than humans. In what appeared to be a laboratory section, Marcus found something that made his blood run cold. The aliens had been conducting experiments with human blood samples. Computer displays showed detailed analysis of how human blood affected different alien species. But more disturbing were the weapons prototypes scattered around the lab. The aliens were trying to turn human blood into a weapon they could use against their enemies. Marcus quickly recorded everything he could with his suit's cameras, then returned to his ship. He needed to get this information back to Earth as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Nina Cross was having her own disturbing revelations. Admiral Thompson had asked her to study the biological effects of human blood on alien tissue, hoping to find a way to make humans less dangerous to other species. What Dr. Cross discovered changed everything they thought they knew about humanity. "Admiral, you need to see this," Dr. Cross said as she entered Thompson's office with a tablet full of data. "I've been analyzing the genetic structure of human blood cells compared to samples from other Earth species." Admiral Thompson looked up from her reports about failed diplomatic attempts with various alien factions. "What did you find?" "Human blood isn't just accidentally toxic to aliens," Dr. Cross explained, showing genetic comparison charts on her tablet. "The compounds that make our blood so dangerous appear to be artificially enhanced. Someone or something modified human genetics a long time ago." "What do you mean, modified?" "I mean our ancestors were changed. The iron-based compounds in our blood that cause cellular breakdown in aliens don't exist in any other Earth species at these levels. It's like humans were designed to be biological weapons." Admiral Thompson sat back in her chair, trying to process this information. "Are you saying humans aren't naturally from Earth?" "I'm saying human blood was engineered to be deadly to specific types of alien biology. The question is, who did the engineering and why?" Before Dr. Cross could explain further, Marcus Webb's emergency transmission reached Earth Command. His report about the alien weapons laboratory sent shockwaves through the military leadership. Captain Morrison, who had been working on defensive strategies, was called into an emergency meeting to review Marcus's findings. "They're not just afraid of us," Morrison said after watching the recorded footage from the alien ship. "Some of them want to use our blood as a weapon against other aliens. This could start wars between different alien species." General Hayes studied the weapons prototypes in the footage. "If aliens start using human blood as a biological weapon, it will make our situation even worse. Every species in the galaxy will see us as the source of a new type of warfare." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Troy Anderson, who led Earth's Special Reconnaissance Forces. His team had been monitoring alien communications since the quarantine began. "Admiral, we're picking up increased chatter between different alien factions," Anderson reported from his ship near the quarantine boundary. "It sounds like there's disagreement about what to do with humanity. Some want to maintain the quarantine forever. Others are talking about more permanent solutions." "What kind of permanent solutions?" Admiral Thompson asked, though she already feared the answer. "The kind that would end humanity's existence entirely." The room fell silent as everyone realized how much worse their situation had become. Not only were humans trapped by an alien quarantine, but some aliens were actively planning their complete destruction, while others wanted to weaponize human blood for their own wars. Elena Martinez, who had been trying to establish secret diplomatic contacts with moderate alien factions, finally spoke up. "I've managed to make contact with a few alien species who think the quarantine is too extreme. They believe humans deserve a chance to prove they can be trusted, but they're a small minority." "How small?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 12 species out of the 200 in the Galactic Council, and they're taking huge risks just by talking to us." Admiral Thompson stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth cities. Millions of people down there had no idea how close humanity was to complete extinction. The quarantine had seemed bad enough, but now they faced the possibility of alien factions using human blood as weapons, while others planned genocide. "We need more information," she decided. "Marcus, I want you to continue your supply runs, but also gather intelligence on alien activities. Captain Anderson, expand your reconnaissance missions. Dr. Cross, keep studying human genetics. If our blood was engineered, maybe we can find out who did it and why. And if we discover the truth is worse than what we already know?" Morrison, asked Admiral Thompson, looked back at her officers with grim determination. "Then we'll face it like humans always have, together and fighting for our survival." Professor Dan Miller knelt in the dust of a dead planet, carefully brushing sand away from ancient stone carvings. His archaeological team had been working on the ruins in the Vega system for 3 weeks, following clues from captured alien databases that Marcus Webb had retrieved during his smuggling runs. The planet had no name in human records, but the aliens called it Keth Morai, which meant the place of great sorrow in the old Zephyrian language. Commander Julia Stone's reconnaissance ship orbited overhead, watching for alien patrols while the scientists worked. "Professor, you need to see this," called Dr. Kevin Brown from across the excavation site. He was the team's evolutionary biologist, and he sounded excited and scared at the same time. Dan walked over to where Kevin was working on a large wall covered in strange symbols. The carvings were incredibly old, but they told a story that made Dan's hands shake as he translated the ancient text. "These symbols are in 12 different alien languages," Dan said slowly. "All of them extinct now, but the story they tell is the same in every language." "What story?" asked Commander Stone over the radio from her ship. Dan took pictures of the wall and uploaded them to the team's computers. "It's about a war that happened 50,000 years ago between all the species in this galaxy and something called the Devourers." Dr. Brown pointed to other carvings further down the wall. "Look at these images, Dan. The Devourers weren't just another alien species. They were parasites. They could take over any living creature and use its body like a puppet." The carvings showed terrible scenes of alien cities being overrun by creatures that looked normal from the outside but moved in wrong, twisted ways. The Devourers spread from planet to planet, turning entire civilizations into armies of controlled hosts. According to this, Dan continued translating, the Devourers could inhabit any organic life form in the galaxy. Once they got inside a creature, that creature became part of their collective mind. Whole species were wiped out not by death but by becoming something else entirely. Commander Stone's voice came through the radio with urgency. "Professor, I'm picking up alien patrol ships heading this way. How much more time do you need?" "Just a few more minutes," Dan replied, working faster to document the ancient story. "The important part is coming up." The next section of the wall showed the galaxy's species working together to fight the Devourers, but their weapons were useless. Energy beams passed through the parasites without harm. Nuclear explosions only scattered them to infect more hosts. Nothing seemed to stop their spread across the galaxy. Then the carvings showed something that made Dan's heart race. A new type of being appeared in the war, humanoid figures that looked remarkably like modern humans. But these ancient humans were different. They were taller, stronger, and their blood glowed with strange energy in the stone artwork. "Kevin, look at this section," Dan said, pointing to the carvings. "These human-like beings were created specifically to fight the Devourers. It says here that their blood contained compounds that could destroy the parasites instantly." Dr. Brown studied the images with his scientific instruments. The biological details match what Dr. Cross discovered about modern human blood. The same iron-based compounds that are toxic to current alien species were apparently deadly to the Devourers, too. The final section of the wall told the end of the war. The engineered humans, working alongside the remaining free alien species, managed to drive the Devourers back to the edge of the galaxy. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Most of the galaxy's civilizations had been destroyed, and billions of beings had died. "Here's the part that explains everything," Dan said, his voice getting quieter. "After the war ended, the surviving humans were changed again. Their memories were wiped and they were placed on a distant planet to live normal lives. The planet was called Earth." Commander Stone's voice crackled over the radio with more urgency. "Professor, those alien ships are getting closer. We need to leave now." "One more minute," Dan pleaded, photographing the last section of the wall. "This is the most important part." The final carvings showed why the humans had been hidden away on Earth. The Devourers hadn't been destroyed, only pushed back into the empty space between galaxies. The ancient aliens knew that someday the parasites would return, and when they did, the galaxy would need its biological weapons again. Humans were meant to be sleeping guardians, their dangerous blood ready to defend against a threat that most current alien species had forgotten about. "Got it," Dan said, packing up his equipment. "Let's go." The team rushed back to their shuttle as alien patrol ships appeared on the horizon. Commander Stone's ship provided cover as they escaped the planet, but not before alien sensors detected their presence. Back on Earth, Admiral Thompson reviewed the archaeological findings with a mixture of amazement and dread. The ancient truth explained why human blood was so toxic to aliens, but it also revealed something terrifying. So you're telling me that humans were created as biological weapons against parasites that might still be out there? She asked Professor Miller. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Dan replied. And based on these records, the Devourers were far more dangerous than anything the current alien species have ever faced. Dr. Cross, who had been studying the genetic data alongside the archaeological evidence, added her own disturbing findings. I've been analyzing human DNA based on the information from Keth Marai. Our blood chemistry isn't just accidentally similar to the ancient weapon humans. We are their direct descendants. But we're weaker than they were, Dr. Brown pointed out. 50,000 years of evolution on Earth has diluted our abilities. We're like a sword that's been left to rust in a closet. Admiral Thompson was about to respond when Captain Morrison burst into the meeting room with urgent news. Admiral, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Something is happening at the edge of the galaxy. Morrison activated the main display screen, showing data from humanity's most distant sensors. The readings were unlike anything they had ever seen before. These energy signatures started appearing 3 days ago, Morrison explained. They're coming from the void between our galaxy and the next one. Whatever's out there is big, and it's moving toward us. Commander Stone, who had just returned from the archaeological mission, studied the sensor data with growing alarm. The movement patterns matched descriptions from the ancient carvings. Large clusters moving together, probing the galaxy's outer edges. You think it's them? Admiral Thompson asked quietly. The Devourers? Professor Miller looked at the data and compared it to the ancient records. The timing makes sense. If the Devourers have been building their strength in the void for 50,000 years, they might finally be ready to return. Dr. Cross pulled up her genetic analysis on the room's computers. If the Devourers are coming back, then the current alien species are completely defenseless. Their immune systems have no natural protection against the parasites. Only human blood has the right compounds to stop them. The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. The same aliens who had quarantined humanity as a biological threat would need human help to survive. The species that had been planning to destroy humanity were about to face something far worse than toxic blood. How long do we have? Admiral Thompson asked. Commander Stone checked the sensor readings again. Based on their current speed and distance, the first Devourer scouts will reach the outer edges of alien space in about 2 months. And the main force? 6 months, maybe less. Admiral Thompson stood up and looked out at Earth's orbital stations. Humanity had spent the last year trapped by an alien quarantine, watching their colonies die and facing the threat of extinction. Now they had learned that they were the galaxy's only hope against an ancient enemy that could destroy all life. Send a message to all human ships and colonies, she ordered. Tell them what we've discovered and prepare a transmission for the Alien Grand Council. It's time they learned the truth about what's coming. Captain Morrison looked worried. Admiral, they might not believe us. They're so afraid of human blood that they might think this is a trick. Then we'll have to prove it to them. Admiral Thompson replied grimly. Because if we don't work together, everyone in this galaxy is going to. Admiral Thompson's transmission to the Grand Council of Species was met with silence for 3 days. Then suddenly, every human ship and station received the same message from High Chancellor Vexeron that had been sent months earlier. But this time, the alien leader's voice carried fear instead of authority. Humans of Earth, our long-range sensors have confirmed your warnings. The entities you call Devourers are indeed approaching our galaxy. 3 of our outer colonies have already gone silent. We request immediate assistance. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, now equipped with special weapons designed by Dr. Bennett and her team. The weapons used human blood compounds in a way that could be deployed safely without harming the human crew. Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the Zephyrian homeworld, reported Ryan Walsh. Ambassador Kethatar is asking specifically for you. Jake felt strange hearing from the alien who had once called humans the Burning Ones. Now that same alien was begging for help from the very people he had feared. The New Horizon arrived at the Zephyrian system to find chaos. Massive alien evacuation ships were fleeing the planet, while others fought desperately against something that looked like normal Zephyrian vessels, but moved in twisted, unnatural ways. "Those aren't Zephyrians anymore," Dr. Bennett said, as she watched the battle through the ship's sensors. "The Devourers have taken control of their bodies. The parasites are using them as puppets." Ambassador Kethtar appeared on the main screen, but he looked different from their first meeting. His blue skin was pale, and his golden eyes showed deep exhaustion. Behind him, his crystal ship was filled with refugees from his dying world. "Captain Morrison, I owe you an apology," the ambassador said. "We feared your blood because we did not understand it was meant to save us. The Devourers landed on our world 6 hours ago. Half our population is already infected." Jake could see infected Zephyrians moving behind the ambassador. They looked normal except for their eyes, which had become completely black. They moved, with jerky, puppet-like motions that made Jake's skin crawl. "How can we help?" Jake asked. "Our scientists have studied the ancient records you shared with the Grand Council. They believe your blood compounds can be turned into an airborne treatment that will destroy the parasites. But we need humans to deliver it. The Devourers flee from your presence." Dr. Bennett had been working on exactly this kind of weapon for weeks. "Captain, I've developed a spray system that can release human blood compounds into a planetary atmosphere. It should kill the parasites without harming the host bodies." "Should?" Jake asked. "The theory is sound, but we haven't had a chance to test it on this scale." Jake looked at his crew. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not survive. "Ryan, signal the fleet. Tell all human ships to begin their approach to Zephyrian Prime." What followed was the largest coordinated human military action in history. Over 200 human ships, from military vessels to converted cargo haulers, descended on the infected Zephyrian homeworld. Each ship carried Dr. Bennett's airborne treatment and crews prepared to risk their lives. Marcus Webb, flying his small smuggling ship, was among the first to enter the planet's atmosphere. "I've been running supplies to dying colonies for months." He radioed to the fleet. "Time to run supplies to a dying world." The battle was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. The infected Zephyrians attacked with their own ships and weapons, but they fled in terror whenever human vessels got too close. It was as if the Devourers remembered their ancient defeat and still feared human blood. "Deploy the treatment, Admiral," Thompson ordered from her command ship. Clouds of airborne blood compounds spread across Zephyrian cities. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Infected aliens collapsed as the parasites inside them were destroyed. Within minutes, they began to wake up, confused but free from the Devourer control. Ambassador Kethtar's voice came over the communication channels, filled with amazement. "It's working. Our people are waking up. The parasites are dying, but..." The victory on Zephyrian Prime was only the beginning. Reports came in from across the galaxy as the Devourers launched their full invasion. Dozens of worlds were under attack, and more were falling every day. Commander Stone led a task force to the Rigel system, where 4 different alien species were fighting a losing battle against Devourer forces. Captain Anderson and his Special Forces team worked with alien commanders to coordinate defense strategies. "The Devourers are smarter this time," Anderson reported during a fleet-wide briefing. "They're avoiding direct contact with human ships and trying to overwhelm us with sheer numbers." The war raged for 6 months. Human ships raced from system to system, delivering the blood compound treatment and fighting alongside alien forces that had once considered them enemies. The irony was not lost on anyone that humanity's most dangerous biological trait had become the galaxy's salvation. Dr. Cross made a breakthrough during the 4th month of the war. Working with alien scientists who had overcome their fear of human blood, she developed a more powerful version of the treatment. "We can create a permanent immunity," she announced to the combined human and alien research teams. "One treatment with enhanced human blood compounds will protect any alien species from Devourer infection for life." The final battle took place at the Galactic Core, where the main Devourer fleet had established a base on an ancient dead world. Captain Morrison led a combined force of human and alien ships in a desperate assault. The Devourers had learned to used the bodies of multiple species, creating horrific combinations of different alien forms controlled by the parasites. But they still could not overcome their instinctive fear of human presence. All human ships maximum approach, Morrison ordered as his fleet dove toward the Devourer stronghold. Let's remind them why they stayed away for 50,000 years. The battle was fierce, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Devourers, for all their power and cunning, were still the same parasites that had been defeated by the ancient weapon humans. Modern humanity might be weaker individually, but they had something their ancestors lacked: alien allies and advanced technology. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the galaxy fell silent. Then slowly, celebration began on thousands of worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked together to rebuild what the parasites had destroyed. A year later, Captain Morrison stood in the same great hall where he had first cut, his hand on the ceremonial blade. But now the hall was filled with representatives from over 300 species, including many that had never been part of the original Grand Council. Ambassador Keth Tar, fully recovered from his world's ordeal, stepped forward with a new ceremonial blade. This one was made from a special alloy that included trace amounts of human blood compounds. "Captain Morrison," the ambassador said with a smile, "this is the new blade of unity. It represents not just friendship between our peoples, but the protection that humanity provides to all life in this galaxy." Jake took the blade carefully, remembering the disaster that had started with his blood a year and a half earlier. This time, when he deliberately cut his palm, the few drops of blood that fell onto the ceremonial table caused no screams or panic. Instead, every alien in the hall raised their voices in a song of gratitude. The blood that had once made humans seem like monsters was now honored as the force that had saved the galaxy. From this day forward, High Chancellor Vexron announced, humanity will be known not as the Burning Ones but as the Guardians. Your ships will patrol the edges of our galaxy, watching for threats that only you can stop. Your blood will protect us all. Admiral Thompson, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Terran Protectorate, smiled as she watched the ceremony. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors or traitors, but as protectors. Their curse had become their greatest gift. Jake looked out at the assembled aliens and thought about how much had changed. A year ago, these same beings had quarantined humanity out of fear. Now they trusted humans to guard their lives and their worlds. The galaxy was safe, but Jake knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, other threats might be stirring. When they came, humanity would be ready. The Guardians would be watching.